Renault is having a renaissance. It all started with a new curvy Clio that showed Renault had rediscovered some of its va-va-voom. Then it was the cutesy Capture crossover, and just this year along came the Kadjar, an SUV that showed its sister car, the Nissan Qashqai, how it should be done. All Renault needed for a complete image revamp was a new family hatchback.
This could be it. Remember the old Megane? Of course you don't. Apart from the Renault Sport versions, the old one was as dull as dishwater. And this one aims to fix that very point.
The front is dominated by a bold grille and striking C-shaped LED day running lights. The front track is also wider than the one at the back to give a muscular stance.
It's not just the outside that's important, it's also the inside. And in the back here, there's a little bit more legroom, that much to be precise, over the outgoing model. The boot is also bigger than a Focus, Golf and an Astra, but that's not the crucial thing here. What we really want to know is whether this car is finally built properly. Well, just like the Kadjar SUV, everything in here is really nicely made. The soft touch plastics feel really good. There's also the option of a full colour heads-up display, a sector first, and also TFT dials, just like the Audi TT. But the piece de resistance is undoubtedly this 8.7-inch touchscreen. It controls all the infotainment features you'd expect and makes the Seat Leon look very last year. The only problem I find are these touch-sensitive buttons, which are very fiddly to use on the move, and this surrounding trim looks a little bit, I don't know, unfinished. Now, has Renault pulled off a full house? Most importantly of all, is this car fun to drive? Well, yes and no. Let's start off with the negatives. This particular car is the GT, and it gets a different steering rack from the other more standard cars, and it's oddly weighted, really. Also, another thing I don't particularly like is the gearbox. Now, it's Renault's 7-speed dual-clutch transmission, and Renault claim that this car, if you put it into sport mode, you can change down gears really very quickly in quick succession. Now, I found it to be really hesitant, and you can't help but think that this car would be better if it had, let's whisper it, VW's DSG gearbox. Another thing that isn't particularly great on this car is something called 4Control. Now, that's Renault speak for four-wheel steering. Now, at speeds of up to 50 miles an hour, the rear wheels turn in the opposite direction to the front wheels, which is fantastic for city manoeuvrability. Above 50 miles an hour, and the rear wheels turn in the same direction as the fronts. Now, whilst that sounds absolutely brilliant, in actual fact, well, in the reality, it's not quite so good. It's brilliant for car parking, but driving around the city with those rear wheels turning in the opposite direction makes the back end feel like jelly, as though it's completely disconnected. There are some positives though. Now, this particular car we're driving is the 1.6 litre turbo petrol GT. Now, on paper it sounds pretty unremarkable. I mean, it develops just 202 brake horsepower, but it feels a lot more powerful than that. It gets to 60 in 7.1 seconds too. This car has also been tweaked by Renault Sport, so the suspension is stiffer and the anti-roll bars are also stiffened. But that hasn't had an adverse effect on ride. It doesn't matter what sporting mode you're in, this car rides really very well. Another thing I really like are the details. Now, this Megane is festooned with lovely little design touches. These Alcantara and leather sport seats look good and also feel great. They offer loads of support. And these metal paddle shifts just feel really great to touch.
With prices kicking off at around £18,000, rising to around £25,000 for this, the daddy, the GT.
So the big question is whether Renault's renaissance is complete with this new Megane. Well, I'm going to stick my neck out and say yes. It's packed with technology, is nicely made, and it's considerably better looking than its predecessor. Renault may well have pulled off a masterstroke.
Click the video on the left to watch our first drive of the Peugeot 308, and the video on the right for our road test of the Ford Focus. Click the play button for our latest video and on our logo to subscribe.